you are all welcome in today's webinar on corporate frauds, subjectivity in accounting standards, and understanding role of auditors. And I request you of all, please don't put your membership number in the chat box. We already have your membership number with us. If you just logged in with us for next 2 hours, definitely we will give you the we will provide you the allotted CPRs, that is 2 hours. There's no doubt in it. So we already have your membership number, rest assured. And today among us, there is a very learned speaker, CA Parveen Kumarji, who has a very good exposure in auditing, and I am just having his brief profile. Shri Parveen Kumarji is a chartered accountant. He is a partner, National Head Assurance, ASA, and Associate LLP. CA Parveen Kumarji is senior partner, national head of assurance advisor of ACA, and the organization has 8 offices with 700 plus team members. CA with over 28 years of post-qualification experience, a commerce graduate holding diploma in ISA, information system audit, besides certification IFRS from UK. He had been a member of NACAS, National Advisory Committee on Accounting Standards, Accounting Standard Board, ASB, and Expert Advisory Committee, besides various research groups and Committee of Indian CA Institute. Experience of working on large number of risk advisory assignments, audits, forensic fraud and investigation, and IFRS transition from various corporates. Speaker at national and international forums on his subject of expertise, faculty with reputed institute like IMT and AAA, ICAI, ICSI, ICWAI, CAG, NIFM, MCA, ICA, DU, and many more. Written a book on consolidation under IFRS Converged Indian Standards, besides paper and article published in various renowned journals and magazines. And he is invited to present paper by reputed institution in Japan, Nepal, Myanmar, Dubai, Singapore, besides various large companies and branches of ICI across country. His personal hobbies include marathon running. So this is some photographs we have that he has marathon in New York and in India also. And we have discussed with him. He has run the full marathon of more than 6, and also many half marathon he has completed. So that is for our chartered accountant, that is a very inspiring thing, that apart from that his academic and professional qualifications. So I request sir to start his deliberations.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ramanji, for your kind words. So, I will just share my presentation. In next 1.5 hours, I will be sharing with you some very interesting insight into corporate frauds from point of view of accounting standards, as well as what is the role of auditors. Nowadays, it is becoming more and more challenging to sign off any balance sheet. So I think this is a subject, the topic which I was discussing with Arunji, and I realized that this is slightly off the routine, because when we go to the NIRC or study circles, generally there are topics related to one particular accounting standard or one particular auditing standard. But then relating it with what is happening around the world, I think this is a very good idea, and I congratulate Arunji for having a seminar on this particular topic. It is very important for all of us to understand what is going on in the industry and how we are all exposed to this kind of a risk. So before I start my presentation, let me share with you some stories. These are 8 accounting stories which I am going to share with you. All these 8 stories, they have a common thread, a common characteristics in all the 8 stories, and they are very, very popular, very common, very, you might have heard about most of these stories. And I'll link these all stories when I come to, the accounting standards and auditing standards. So first one is Bank of Credit and Commerce International. They are 8 organizations which I'm going to talk about. This was founded in Karachi in 72, and it was having a major business with huge number of employees and operations in 78 countries. So this was, there was a issue which happened in 1991, and the main allegations were that there was more than 20 billion plus heist, more than 13 billion funds were unaccounted for. So for each story, there are 2 slides. One slide will tell you about the company, which I'm going to talk about. And second will be what was the allegation in that company. So there were other allegations also on this particular company. They include bribery and support to terrorist activities and money laundering and smuggling and whatnot. But main story was that huge number of funds were unaccounted for. The second one is Enron Corporation. This was founded in US, one of the largest company. So recently I inquired from my friend circle if they remember any of the corporate frauds. And when I went on to the LinkedIn and asked this question, that tell me which 3 accounting frauds or which accounting fraud comes into your mind when we talk about accounting fraud. So Enron Corporation was the most well-known accounting fraud, which was remembered by almost everyone. We talk about corporate accounting fraud, financial fraud. Enron was the first name which was coming into the mind of people. So basically, this company lost its fame in 2001. And the main allegation on this company was that debt of the company were hidden and the profits were inflated by over more than 1 billion. And this company was also, there was an allegation that it was offering bribes to foreign governments to win contract. But this particular accounting story, it doesn't end there. One of the largest accounting firm, which was having offices in, so many countries, around 100 countries. So they had to shut down their operations. And some of those who have been practicing for some time, they would know that Arthur Andersen had to face a shutdown because of this accounting fraud. But interestingly, after this accounting fraud, the scenario across the world had changed. So the new regulation came into picture. In US, they implemented Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and that act required a lot of documentation. It was stressed, that all the senior people will take personal responsibility on the financial statements. The ripple effect of that Sarbanes-Oxley Act were twofold. One was that all other countries started implementing that kind of, strict controls. And in India also, we implemented IFCFR. In Japan, they implemented JSOX. And a lot of companies have, they had to spend a lot of money to implement this requirement of this act. The second effect was, and this is for people who are into practice, the second effect was revenue of the other large entities who learned how to, how to help companies in complying with this law. Their revenue shot up like anything. So their revenue was, tremendously increased because of this new requirement which had come into play. So, but this had changed the way accounting was done and the auditing was done, not only in US, but across the globe. Third, then WorldCom was another large scandal which came into picture. And this accounting scandal came into picture when the internal auditor were changed and they worked in the night hours to bring out, the story or the kind of things which were happening. So allegation of this company was that they were underreporting expenses, which were revenue expenses. They were underreporting and they were capitalizing these expenses to a great extent. So they were showing nice profits in the company wherein actually there were a lot of losses which were happening in this company. Then we move on. There was another company, Tyco International. There was a global manufacturing company which was having more than 100,000 employees, and they were mainly into security products and fire protection services and electrical and metal products. So allegation of on this company was that the CEO and CFO, they were sorry, I'll just put my phone on the airplane mode. So the allegation on this company was that their CEO and CFO, they were siphoning away the money, which was the company's money, and there was theft happening in the company. Then we move on from US. Now we go to Japan. Kanebo Limited was a textile and cosmetic group. It was originally established more than 100 years ago, and very popular company at that point of time when a major accounting fraud came into picture. This was considered as one of the largest frauds as far as Japan is concerned. The allegation on this company was that they had inflated profits by over 2 billion over a 5-year period. Then we move on and we go to Europe. Parmalat was founded in 1961 in Italy, a multinational company which was, which faced this collapse because of accounting scandal, which was again of a very big amount, more than 20 billion. And the allegations were their total debts were more than double on the balance sheet, and forgery and bankruptcy were other allegations. There was accounting story related to AIG also. This was a Shanghai-based company with the, started in Shanghai and then based in New York with more than 100,000 employees. And the allegations were that they were inflating their financial position by $2.7 billion. This particular company, almost all of us are aware of. This is our own home, Satyam, which was founded in 1987. And this company was working in 67 countries with more than 50,000 employees. And this accounting scandal came into exposure, and there was a lot of discussion around that this particular scandal has happened. Frankly speaking, our new laws, which are company law and other regulations which are coming into play, they are primarily inspired, or the rule makers were primarily inspired from this particular scandal. So this company inflated cash and bank balance position, and overstated the debtor's position of hundreds of million and understated their liability. So these 8 stories which we discussed, which we saw, they all have one common thread. So they were all very, very famous companies, but all of these companies were showing rosy picture to their to the investor, to the public outside. So this presentation which I am going to have with you, we'll be discussing with the help of background of these 8 accounting stories. We'll discuss how these corporate frauds happen, how there is a lot of subjectivity in the accounting standards, and how as auditors we need to be careful about. We need to see all the accounting assignment or the auditing assignments which we are having in light of these stories. So many times when we get an audit assignment, either with the through CAG or through Reserve Bank of India or through a common friend or a foreign subsidiary, we feel very happy. Oh, this is a nice company. So this is a very good company. This is all these companies, please remember, before the accounting scandal came out, they were very good companies. They were very renowned companies. So when you are signing a balance sheet, when you are signing an audit report, you need to be careful and don't get swayed by the reputation of the company from that perspective. Whatever work has been assigned, that has to be done in true spirit and according to the auditing standards. So let us look at a snapshot of, there was a report which was submitted by ACFE, report to the nations. They submit, frequently. So there are different, so some snapshots I have picked up from from this report, which was given by ACFE. So there are 2 kinds of frauds. They said one is asset misappropriation and the other was financial statement related frauds. So asset misappropriation frauds was the most common, wherein so they did some kind of survey. They found that 89% of the cases were related to asset misappropriation, but they were least costly. The cost of these each fraud was, quite less in comparison to financial statement related frauds. They were in numbers, they were least common. I mean, 10% of the cases which they surveyed, but they were more costly. They were 800,000 million loss was there. One of the reason they found that internal control weakness is one of the reason for all these frauds. And they also realized that 85% of the fraudsters were never charged or convicted. uh, Potential projected global fraud, loss because of this fraud is huge amount, which they said. And then every company, they can very easily say that, okay, 5% of the annual revenue can be lost through frauds. So they said that 50% of the frauds were caught because of the tips which the management had received. And detection rate, how these frauds were detected, this is very interesting. How these frauds were detected, 15%, only 15% were detected by the internal auditor, 13% by the management, and 7% frauds were detected by accident. So somebody was not on the desk, the other person came and started working and realized that there is something going on wrong. So through accident, they realized that there is a fraud happening. And please remember that 50% of the frauds were detected by the help of a tip. And more than half of those companies which faced these frauds, they recovered nothing from the fraudsters.
So this gives you a snapshot of how frauds happen, in the company. And when you're dealing with a company, whether as an accountant, as a tax advisor, or as an auditor, you need to keep on the back of your mind that the reputation of the company means nothing, because the ultimate responsibility of auditors or the advisor remains according to the regulations. So there are different types of frauds. Like I said, asset misappropriation or corruption or financial statement related. So what we are going to discuss today is, mostly around financial statement frauds. So there are elements which describe how these frauds happen. So there are three main ingredients or element of these frauds. So one is act or omission to act. So somebody is looking at something which is happening and that person doesn't speak. That is also called, participation in the fraud. The other is the damaging the other person. And third is the intention to, earn revenue out of it. So damaging. So all these three ingredients are important. So accounting manipulation, we will see, when the frauds, accounting frauds happen, and we will see it with the help of case studies also, how, the revenue recognition related frauds can happen. I'm not even talking about, simple, crystal clear frauds which are happening, like, dummy bills or those kind of things. But I'm talking about frauds which are commonly, taken as a mistake. So that is also a possibility. So bribery and corrupt practices is also covered in the definition of fraud, and especially in computerized environment. This is very, very critical. Is extremely, one need to be very, very careful while dealing in computerized environment. Financial crimes are also part of this. Now, this slide is very important for all of you to understand. And when you deal with your clients, when you deal with the promoters, or if you are running a business, this is an important slide for you. 85% of the fraudsters, according to that survey which happened, they at least displayed one behavioral red flag out of this. So majorly, the people who were carrying out the fraud, around 41% of those people, they were living beyond means. Now, I would like to share my personal experience with you. When I, joined a small firm, in Delhi, Jhandewalan Extension, and I was appointed as an article clerk. So we were only two article clerks there, and we were sent to, a nice business house in Connaught Place. When we went there, so this company was doing some kind of film development business. So they had a lot of, sales agent who would go to various studios, will pick up the roles. At that time, I think ancient time, we were having those kind of roles on which the films were clicked. So these sale agents were picking up those roles, were getting it developed, and then were delivering and collecting money from the studios. So there was one young sales agent who was very bright and was, the favorite of everyone. He was bringing in huge business there. So when we went there and we started doing audit, I was jealous of him because he was driving a motorcycle which was very, very high-end motorcycle. At that time, Honda motorcycles were very high-end. His salary was very small, and he was smoking cigarette which was imported cigarette, and his shirts and his living style was really making us jealous. So we were wondering that, this guy is earning very small salary, and how he can manage, to have this kind of lifestyle. Later on, during the time we were doing audit, these people, they offered us sweets, and we were told that this guy has purchased a car, Maruti 800, at that point of time. So everybody congratulated him. So the CFO, told us of that company that please look at our accounts while doing the audit carefully. I don't know what is happening. This guy is really, having a lot of interesting way lifestyle. So we looked at it, we reconciled. There were debtors, so all the studios were making payments. So it was all neat and clean. Every roll which was printed, it was sent, and the payment used to come after 15 days or something like that. Later on, we realized, this person was actually committing a huge fraud that came, to the light later on when this guy had some emergency and he had to go out. So the other sales agent went to the studio to collect money, which was 15 days old. And the studio person said that I'm making payment on every day basis. So I have made all the payments to this person. So what this person was doing, he was collecting money on day one, was using for his own purpose. Day two, whatever was collected, he was, depositing money to the company as if it was received for day one invoice. And day three, so he was, expanding the uh, uh, debtors, whereas all the money he was using was company's money. 41% of the fraudsters will exhibit this red flag. Financial difficulty would be another red flag. So when you are doing audit and you realize there is an employee who is going through very tough time, and this happened when we were doing a bank audit. So they shared a story with us. We were quite comfortable with the bank manager, and we were doing branch audit, and we were sitting till late to complete, because you are all aware that we get those audits to be completed within a very short time. Then the manager shared a story that they had one teller who was very hand to mouth, and his son got sick, and he had to take his son to the medical for some emergency. So this teller, the cashier, picked up a packet of 50 rupee, 5,000 rupees from the cash box and used it for his son's, you know. So, and that was continuing till the time some inspector came and counted the cash. So there are financial difficulties also, which is one of the red flag. Usually close association with a vendor or customer is also a reason for fraudsters. So there was a client of ours whose accountant was very friendly with the vendors. So later on, we realized that the vendors were bribing this accounts person, and he was, giving them undue advantage in the accounting books. Excessive control issues or unwillingness to share duties. So there are many people who have, control over everything, and they do not want to share duties. This is also a sign that something might be wrong there. Some of the foreign companies, they make it compulsory for all the staff members to go for vacations. So some people, when they resist, it's not that everybody who is resisting vacation is a fraudster, but this is one of the red flag, that this person does not want anybody to see what he's doing. Recent family problem is also one of the red flag. Too good to be true. This is a red flag. So those people who have seen, this Harshad Mehta story on Sony Live, they would agree. In one of the episode, the clerical staff of the bank, which is giving a little bit advantage to that share broker, they are, going to their village through by air, and then the other staff member is having a lot of jewelry. So there are too good to be true syndromes, which are, one of the, which are also red flags. Some people are abnormally slow in performing routine work, and we see in some of the departments, this is a very common thing. So you go, you don't bribe, and you realize that the work will get very, very slow. So this person works very slow. But if somebody comes and bribe them, then they would be very, very fast in providing that information or getting that work done. So sometimes people who are doing social isolation, they are not mixing up with anyone, is also one of the red flag. So whenever there is a fraud happening, there are red flags, and 85% cases they saw one of these behavioral red flag were displayed by the fraudsters. There are certain myths around corporate frauds. Um, there are companies, and we interact with the managing directors, and we deal with a lot of foreign companies. So these people, the person who is on the top, he would say that we have implemented ERP system and nothing wrong can happen. So this is a myth that, if you have a strong ERP system and robust control, nothing wrong can happen. It's a myth. There are possibilities of getting into fraud situation there. Trustworthiness, being the company with the company for very long, is also one of the myth. So you deal with the promoters and you realize that one guy who is very much trustworthy, and they leave everything with them. So I have seen it in my career itself that, promoter had signed off some blank checks and used to keep it with the very senior accountant. And then later on we realized that he would not draw the checks which are immediately following, but from the behind the checkbook, whichever the last or second last check, he would use that to make certain payments. So trustworthiness is a myth in when you are dealing in corporate. When you are dealing with accounts and finance, you need to be careful about. And one case where we saw that they mentioned that account pay checks are being given from our company. It's a foolproof system. No, it is not. Nowadays, there are a lot of fraudsters which are, having those kind of pens, so you can change the numbers. So many companies, what they have started doing is putting a sellotape on the numbers. So they are using other techniques to control that. Setting up systems can be deferred. So those people who are dealing with startups, those people who are dealing with the young entrepreneurs, and their growth is happening very, very fast. So they say that, okay, we are setting up our uh, main agenda is to grow the business. We will set up systems later on. So that is a myth that, fraud cannot happen when we are growing very, very fast. Materiality, small limitations or system weakness may be ignored. That is also one of the myth that, okay, these things are very small, so please ignore. Many of the fraudsters, what we have seen is, that they do frauds which is below visibility level, and they keep on doing it and nobody noticed them. So once the fraudster is identified and fired, problem ends. So this happened in a very famous bank fraud case. So they found somebody doing something wrong in the bank. They picked up the person, fired him, and later on, after 3 years, the next person who was sitting at that seat was doing exactly the same thing. Same kind of fraud was happening. So difficult to find, identify fraudsters in larger group is also one of the myth. But whenever the fraud is happening, this triangle needs to be completed. So there is an opportunity always, there is a rationalization, and there is a pressure. So so this fraud triangle needs to be completed. So whenever you are doing any assignment which are related to finding fraud, you need to see that all these three dimensions are met. So how does the fraud happens? A small unnoticed error and gain from past experience. So somebody was doing something wrong and nobody noticed it. So it starts from there. Or there may be a system deficiency, complacency, and weak internal control coupled with opportunities. These are the genesis of these frauds. And lack of accounting knowledge at the top level, executives, and too much dependence on a person can result in the fraud. So these are the genesis of these frauds. So we come to the financial statement. So we have understood dimensions of the fraud. So frauds can be asset misappropriation, frauds can be financial statement related. So we, the chartered accountants, we are dealing with the companies. We are helping them in either preparation of the financial statements, or we are helping them by, or we are doing our duty as independent auditors. It is very important for us to understand the, so there is, on one side, there is a law, and on the other side, there are standards. So accounting standards. So I'll discuss how the accounting standards, that there is a lot of subjectivity involved in these standards. But let us understand the framework. The financial statements are basically prepared for what purpose? The framework, Indian Accounting Standard Framework, says that financial statements are prepared to help user taking a decision. So there are three objectives of these financial statements. One is to know the financial position for which we make the balance sheets. The other is to know the performance for which we make the statement of profit and loss. And third is to know the changes in financial position for which we make the cash flow statements. So these are the objectives for which the financial statements are prepared, and mainly to help user taking a decision. Who can be the users of these financial statements? There can be internal users. Like for example, if you are running a business, you need to know that, okay, there are two line of business I am running. Which one is giving me profit, which one is not, which was it I should stop, and which one I should continue. So as a management or as officer of the company, you need to see the financial statements, that what is happening, what is my cost and what is my revenue. And then the auditors, as auditors, you have to sign and give a report which will say that, okay, these financial statements are showing true and fair picture, or they are showing true and fair picture subject to these areas where I am not comfortable with. Or you need to do internal audit and you have to give them a report. So you as auditors also need to see the financial statements. And then there are external users also. There are people who are investing in the company. There are shareholders. There are, the bankers who need to give money as a loan to the company. So there are lenders. There are people who wants to invest or get into joint venture with the company. They also need to see the financial statements. Sometimes the customers also, before getting into a long-term relationship with the company, they also need to see the financial statements. And then the regulator also need to see your financial statements, because otherwise, how will the tax officer know that you are paying the right kind of tax, whether direct tax or indirect tax? Whether you are getting into a faceless assessment scenario where the income tax officer, you do not know where the officer is sitting, whether it is in your city or in other city. But and there are various units which are dealing with your assessment. So as tax consultant, you are helping the clients. But those tax officers who are sitting in that area, they need to see the financial statement and make an assessment whether the client or whether the assessee is paying the right kind of tax or not. So they all see and have a look at the financial statements, and financial statements need to give a true and fair picture. So a couple of slides on why there was a need on of Ind AS or IFRS. So the situation was that a company which is, let us say, US subsidiary sitting in India, they were preparing financial statements according to Indian GAAP, because they had to submit to the registrar of companies, to the income tax office, to the stock exchange, and they would convert it into US GAAP for submitting to their head office, or to European GAAP in case they were giving it to European companies for consolidation. This was a pre-IFRS scenario. The idea was that you prepare one financial statements, you submit that statement to the registrar, you give that statement to US head office, and you give that statement to your European counterpart. So basically the global objective of bringing in IFRS was this. And in India, we did not implement, we converged and we created our own standards, which are called Ind AS. So those Ind AS were implemented by all the listed companies and the private companies with a turnover of 250 crore plus. And then banks and insurance companies are in the pipeline, so they will also be implementing the same. There is a lot of subjectivity there. So, but this was the background of why these standards came into picture. So now, when we look at the financial statements, I was doing audit of one of the trust, gratuity trust, and I was trying to. So when I saw the trust, I realized that they had given only 1 year number, and they said that in trust, it is not mandatory to give the previous year numbers. They said कि कहाँ लिखा है कि पिछले साल के numbers देने हैं हमें. Then I shared with them something which is called the framework of accounting standards, in which the qualitative characteristics have been defined. So these characteristics, when you are signing a balance sheet as an auditor, or you are helping a client preparing a balance sheet, you need to understand that these characteristics are required to be adhered to. These are given in the framework of accounting standards. So one of the important characteristics is understandability. Your financial statement should be understandable. They should contain relevant information. They should be reliable. All the information which is coming into these financial statements should be reliable. And that's why there are so many people who are signing on these financial statements. The CEO, the CFO, the company secretary, the auditors, everyone signs on the financial statement, so that when the user look at the financial statements, they should see that so many people have seen those financial statements, so they can rely on that. Substance over form. So this is what is written in our framework of accounting standards. We need to follow substance over form. Then comparability is also one of the characteristics. So that means you should be in a position to compare the number of these financial statements from the previous year numbers. So that's a very important part of your financial statements. Prudence, we follow prudence. The year in which the expenses have been incurred and the revenue has been, so you have to use that matching principle. And then completeness, all your financial statements should be complete, should give complete information. So many times we look at the standards and we just prepare it, and we realize that there are certain assumptions or certain principles which are coming while preparing these financial statements. So we need to understand that they are all coming from the accounting framework. So now I move on to the subjectivity in the accounting standards. So please see that India works on a multi-regulator model. I'll give you one example and you will understand. So if you want to start a business, you will first form a company. So in order to form a company, you will go to the registrar of companies, will take approval, and then we get your company registered. And you will follow whatever is written in the Companies Act. So company law regulators, so registrar of companies become your first regulator. So you want to do a business, so you are increasing your business and you realize that there are a lot of people who need money and you want to get into banking business. In order to get into NBFC or license or banking license, you will need to go to another regulator. So you will go to the bank, Reserve Bank of India. The moment you get that license, there is another regulator which will come into play, Reserve Bank of India. You want to do insurance business, so you go to another regulator, IRDA, and take license from there. And that regulator will also tell you how to write your financial statements. After a few years, you say that, okay, I have got enough business now, I want to go public. So you bring out an IPO, and another regulator come into picture, SEBI. So all these regulators, they keep on telling you how to prepare your financial statement. So we land into a very interesting scenario here. So on one side, we have IFRS, which is, if you want to get into joint venture with a foreign company, you need to present to show, your financial statements which are made as per IFRS. Or if you're a global subsidiary of a foreign company, you need to make it according to IFRS so that you can, your numbers can be consolidated there. If you are a listed company or a private limited company above that threshold, you will be implementing Ind AS. If you are not a private company, if you are below that threshold limit and you are a company, then you will be implementing accounting standards, which are published in the company's rules. So if you are not a company and still you're getting audit done, there are accounting standards which are published by the institute. And then there are three levels: level 1, level 2, level 3. So that means a certain size of company, they will implement all the standards except some standards. Then level 2 accept some less standards, and then level 3 companies no exemption from all the standards. So there are levels. And then we are also discussing in the institute that we will have one more level for companies. So look at the situation you are in. You need to make financial statements. You need to see whether it is a company or it is a partnership firm or a LLP or a proprietorship firm. You need to then see whether the company is of a particular size or not of a particular size. Then in case you are a private or you're not a company, non-company, then you will need to see what size your company is, what is the turnover and what is the net worth. And then you will see what level of accounting standards you need to implement. And it doesn't stop there. Apart from all this subjectivity, income tax people also saw that there is a lot of confusion there. Somebody is preparing as per India, somebody is preparing as per level 1, somebody is preparing as per company accounting standards. So they said, okay, forget whatever way you want to do, we will bring in our own standards. So they brought out their own standards, which are called income computation and disclosure standards. So once you are preparing your financial statements according to struggling with understanding which level of standards you are implementing, you need to file your tax return by implementing ICDS. And then there are companies which are into manufacturing activity. There are standards which are given by the Institute of Cost and Works Accountants. So there are cost standards also. And then there are non-profit making companies for which there is a separate set of accounting standards. So you see the kind of confusion you are in. There is a subjectivity. All kind of standards are there. So when you are struggling with all these standards, on one side there is a requirement of the company law, which will tell you how to prepare your balance sheet. But you are not done there. There are other regulators to whom you had gone to do your business, like RBI, IRDA, insurance, all SEBI. These people will also tell you how to prepare your financial statements. So you see the kind of situation we are in. Simple, we wanted to make financial statements in order to help user taking a decision. And here are the standards. And now one more star, which I have not yet put, is, there are other standards also in the making, which you will come to know very soon, which is Bureau of Indian Standards. They are also making these standards in the process. Globally, it is happening. When you are doing data collection and when you are dealing with the, those standards are also in the making, that, the Bureau of Indian Standard will also bring out their own standards on how to do auditing in particular environment. So there are all kind of standards which are there. And then there is a company law situation. So see the subjectivity which we are in right now. Now, is it a problem? It is basically an opportunity for all of us. So like I shared with you in the beginning, when we were discussing case study number 2, when the Enron happened and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act came, all these corporates, they went to the people who were qualified to and who could understand the nitty-gritties of those. And those people could earn a lot of revenue because of this Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So these standards, the subjectivity in these standards is not bad for our community. So basically, because we have these standards, so many of these standards, the business community, they need qualified CAs. And there is a demand which is happening, and there is a need of consultant which is there, because it's not very, very simple. I tell you, when in 1991, when I qualified, and I wanted to have my first client. So this person was trading in furniture. So he told me that, okay, I have a sale tax case. At that time, it was sale tax department and sale tax was happening. So he said that, would you like to take up this assignment? I said, but I have never done sales tax assessment and all. He said, don't worry, you just come with me. So I went with him. He kept some good number of notes in his upper pocket. So he went to the first person, gave something, and then gave something, sat in front of the tax officer, sales tax officer at that point. I was sitting beside him, and he asked some questions. So this guy told me that, it's nothing. Sale tax, I can get assessment done myself, but just because the sale tax officer wanted a signature of a CA, so I brought you there. But I can manage my sale tax assessment. But can the businessman manage GST now?
हाँ सर उसको आपको सहारा चाहिए था बस डिग्री का सहारा चाहिए था जी
So right now, when we look at the situation in GST, even the professionals are struggling to understand what kind of notifications are coming. Every day there is a new, and then there is a utility, there's online, there's cloud. So it's a matter of specialization. So those people who are dealing with GST, they are really, really, they need to work hard to understand the requirement. So GST is not my area. So, but I keep on, reading in the groups, GST 8, 9, and all those kind of requirements which are coming, and then extensions which are going on. It's very difficult. So businessman, the company, they need experts who will be able to manage, similarly the accounting standards. So it is not a difficulty. Basically, it is an opportunity for all of us. So, but it is important for you to know that in standards also, in making the financial statements also, there is a lot of subjectivity involved. So it doesn't stop there. I mean, IFCFR was a very big change which has happened. I see a lot of companies still struggling with managing the IFCFR documentation. So there were different models which were available. So there were models which were saying that, if the company has documented controls and policies and procedures, if documentation is not there, then it is not reliable. If some part is there, so it is insufficient. It exists, but not not properly implemented, then reliable. And then, so these are the kind of models which are there. Then disclosure creation process, we still struggle with when we do the audits of a small company. For them, who are the promoters, it is just a formality which the auditors need to help them. But actually speaking, creating IFCFR documentation in itself is a huge task. And like I mentioned, that in America, the SOX requirement when came, the revenue of the accounting consultants that jumped tremendously. But in India, the number of man hours put in by the professionals jumped significantly, and the fees did not increase. But anyway, that's up to each one of us. So there are formal responsibility of control activities which is required, assessment of controls, and then identification and remediation of control deficiencies. So I move on to the case studies. One of the most common accounting fraud is revenue recognition related. So it's a very simple case, where a company has shown purchases of 100,000 engines. There is a purchase amount. Company has sold those 100,000 engines. There's an amount and there is some profit which they have earned. There's an opening stock and there is a closing stock which is matching with each other. So when we send our people to do the auditing, we realize that the article clerk, they come and say that, okay, there is nothing wrong here. But actually speaking, there are huge possibilities of both sides. There can be a situation where these financial statements are not showing true and fair picture. So possibility of accounting fraud is the company wants to show excess revenue, and that's it. That is what is the thread in the whole all the 8 accounting stories, where they wanted to show rosy picture to the investors. A lot of large companies and even medium sized companies, they want to show revenue, because they want to show a good picture. In order to do that, what kind of activities they do? Sometimes they do not book the sales return, or they defer booking of the sale return. So if you are doing an audit and you realize that there is a long process of booking the sale return, it's postponement of the sales return. This is not the right kind of accounting. Whether you are implementing Ind AS or whether you are implementing AS, whether you are doing accounting as per Ind AS 115 by using 5 steps formula, or you are using the AS 7 and 9, and you are using risk and reward methodology. So your sales, your revenue needs to be booked properly. We had seen cases where people, in order to show sales, in order to show revenue, they cut the invoice, send the goods to their own godowns, and show it as a revenue. So they have, so at that time there was excise duty, so excise duty was paid, sale tax was charged, but the godown were their own. So this is also a kind of showing excess revenue. Trade discounts were not adjusted. So many times we see that companies who are especially the companies which are listed companies or large companies, they always want to be very sure about what revenue they are showing. So while doing audit, when you are doing audit of a large company, or you are doing audit of a subsidiary of a large company, you need to be very careful. Especially related party transactions, you need to be very careful when the revenue is booked and the material is going to the related party. You need to be doubly sure. You carry out additional audit procedures to know whether this revenue which is shown is correct or not. So many times when we see, these companies, maybe real estate sector, they have got a lot of subsidiary companies. So 100, 200, 300, 400 subsidiary companies, and there are transactions happening within the companies also. So you see how, revenue can be manipulated if they are not making a consolidated statement. One item sold by one company to another, to another, to another, every company will be showing 100 revenue, 100 revenue, 100 revenue. But actually on a group level, when you will do elimination of these inter-party transactions, you will realize that in consolidation, there is only one sales or revenue entry, not all of these. So many companies, they show excess revenue, and some of the companies which are, they want to show less revenue also. So maybe that is the purpose of, for the purpose of tax avoidance or taking some personal advantage. So sometimes they say make sales without invoice. Sometimes they send goods as sample. Sometimes agreement with the distributors of or of that kind, where they will demonstrate that the revenue is less. So when you have abnormal stock situation, you need to see whether the revenue recognition is correct or not. There are many more possibilities and reasons because of which the revenue recognition is not correct. So you need to be very careful while reviewing the auditing the revenue part. Then there are gross and net issue, like people do high C sales and every company they book revenue in their books. Then there are artificial sales which they book. Then there are sales which are invoices which are taken for commission, and then sales to self. All these situations. So when you're doing audit, you need to be very careful that these are the high risk. So when the regulators like NAFRA or PCAOB, when they will look into your audit working papers, they will, this item of checking the revenue, how did you do the audit of revenue, will be the first item on their agenda, because globally revenue recognition is one of the major area where manipulations happen. So I will discuss another, interesting story with you. It is slightly old, but it gives you a good amount of insight into how the subjectivity in accounting standards play a role. Slightly old, at that time there was accounting standard number 6 related to depreciation was active. But this company was a listed company. If you remember, at that point of time, few years ago, there were a Schedule 14 of the Companies Act, which was giving depreciation rates, indicative depreciation rates, which were minimum depreciation rates. And then there are depreciation rates which are given in the income tax schedules. So those depreciation rates are higher, which are in income tax, and in the Companies Act, the minimum depreciation rates are lower at that time. So this company, which is a listed company, what they were doing, they were using income tax depreciation rates for their books, so that tomorrow there should not be any confusion. So the new management came, and this new CFO and director finance came, and they realized that, okay, we were charging high depreciation rates from very beginning. So whereas the Companies Act, company law, they allow us lower rate of depreciation. So he said that, okay, I want to make correction in my financial statements. I want to change all the, from previous years, I will change the depreciation from the past years, and I will do a correct accounting now by using the rates of depreciation which are given in Schedule 14. So he said, I will meet with all the requirement of the law of the accounting standards. Accounting standard 1 says wherever there is any change in policy, I will make a disclosure. Accounting standard 6 says that depreciation, if it is allowed under the income tax or any regulation, you can use those rates. Accounting standard 5 says that if there are corrections or errors related to past, I can do it in the current year. So when he did calculation, there was a profit of 109 crore rupees. So it is an item came out in the P&L, and the matter came to the auditor. So what do you think? Was it okay? The company was right in booking this kind of a profit because of change in depreciation rates? What do you think? You can put your comment in chat box. So whether this company was right, whether this company was wrong. So anyway, I'll share with you what happened.
There is one comment that is can note at all.
Okay, there are a couple of people who have mentioned in the chat. So Sanjay Jha said that this is right. Also, there's another participant 041CBD3. He said or she said it's correct. And somebody mentioned in the Q&A, I think Sunil Dalmia ji said it was absolutely wrong. Manpreet Singh said it is yes. So any other person who wants to make a comment? So what this company did, they created 109 crore of profit because the director of finance said that we were charging depreciation rates which were as per income tax, which were high depreciation rates. We should have charged the company's Schedule 14 depreciation rates. So I will make a correction now and will do all the changes. So there are some more people who are putting comments. There are two issues involved: accounting treatment and the justification of revision in value due to change in rates, Sumit Gupta has said. So friends, this is the point which I want to put across is that people, they look at the standards and they find, the that there is a subjectivity in these standards. So basically, if you look at accounting standard at that point of time, there was a clause 16, and that standard said that if you are changing the depreciation method, written down to straight line or straight line to written down method, if you are changing the method, then it is a change in policy. Change in policy has to be done retrospectively. But if you are changing the rates, that rate of depreciation is management estimate. Management estimate cannot be changed retrospectively. If you are changing the depreciation rates, that means you are saying that the useful life of the asset will be this much, which we are making an assessment now. Whatever has been done is done. Now you are changing the estimate, so you need to do the changes retrospectively. But if you are making a change in policy, then you have to go back and do a retrospective change. So if this director of finance has just changed the rates because income tax rates were different and Companies Act rates were different, if they just change the rate, they cannot go back and do correction retrospectively. They cannot, because the estimate is that, okay, my computer will will work for next 5 years, so I will charge 20% depreciation. But in the next year, you find that, okay, the technology has gone out, new technology has come, and my computer will now run only for 2 years. Next year, you will charge only 50%. It doesn't mean that your previous estimate was wrong. The standard does not allow you to change retrospectively if you are changing the estimate. But if you are making a change in policy, then you have to tell the users that due to change in policy, all these so retrospective effect has to be brought in. So please remember that there are many areas in accounting standards where you will find that there is a little thin line which will allow you to bring in a lot of amount into your P&L. Similarly, there was a case in accounting standard 11, clause number 46. At that time, 46A allowed management to deal with the foreign exchange fluctuation. So that capitalization, that was allowed only at the initial year. After that, you cannot change the stance. You will need to keep on taking the same stand. If you're planning to capitalize, you will need to capitalize every year. But if you are taking it into revenue, you will need to do every year the same way. So you cannot change your policy, until and unless there is a change in the regulation. So in this particular case, if the CFO says or director of finance says that, okay, I have changed the policy, then the retrospective effect will come into picture. But change in estimate, prospective only. So this is how the subject. There are a lot of other examples also which will give us insight into subjectivity of accounting standards. But I move on to discussion on auditing. So this is a very strange year for all of us. We did audits, but during March, it was a complete lockdown, not only in India, but across the globe. How did, a physical verification of inventory was done? Many companies are still struggling. Some of the auditors have put in a comment in the report. Some of the management has accepted those comments, but some of the people have not accepted those comments. They said that whatever you want to do. I do not want a qualification or a comment in the report. So they are struggling. So physical verification of inventory, this was a major issue in COVID. Then going concern was a major issue. Some of the companies, they are on the verge of closing down. And between March 31st and today's date, if you have not yet signed the financial statements while doing the audit, you look at going concern issue in a very careful manner. This is major consideration for the current year. Subsequent event after 31st, you cannot say that, okay, 31st March, I closed my books. After that, there was a fire and my factory shut down. So, but you are signing off as on 31st March. What are you supposed to do with that? But you need to take into consideration the insurance claims and all those kind of stuff. And you will need to make a mention of subsequent event in case require, whether that requires an adjustment in the financial statements or not. So auditors reporting has become very technical during the current year. So there are standards which have been issued by Auditing and Assurance Standard Board. So one, the people who are into auditing profession they need to be very careful. These assurance services and related services, there are different standards. Standard on related services, they've got a different series. And then there is a framework of assurance engagements. And then you are doing historical engagement, historical financial statement, and then there are standards on auditing, then standard on review engagements, you are doing midterm review, and then other than audit, so you are doing standards on assurance engagements. These all standards have been defined by the institute. And uh, these auditing standards, so most important standard in auditing is SQC1, quality control for firms that perform audit and review. So please, those who have not seen report of NAFRA on couple of audits which were carried out by large accounting auditing firms, please look at those reports. The benchmark of your auditing work paper has totally changed. What is expectation of the regulator is that your firm needs to have that kind of control mechanism. You need to, how you're training your people, how you're planning your audits, how you're keeping your work papers, what kind of documentation you are doing when you are interacting with the promoter so you are doing audit of a small company or a proprietorship. So you need to adhere to the auditing standards. This is requirement of the day. You cannot just ignore. Tomorrow that proprietor may go to the bank and on the basis of the balance sheet which you have signed will take a bank loan, and tomorrow there is something goes wrong. All the regulator will come to you first, because you have signed the balance sheet, and bank would say, I relied on the balance sheet which has been signed by this firm. So please be very careful. However close you are with your client, please never compromise on the work papers. So these standards on auditing are there. If you have followed those auditing standards, the regulators come, you will say that, okay, I complied with these standards. This was the required thing. So, but, if you are not able to demonstrate that, then it becomes a difficult task. Many senior professionals I've seen, when they do the audits, they try and understand how this transaction was carried out. Okay, I understand. And then they get comfort and then they sign off. It's not good today. Not only you need to understand, but you also need to write down. So if you received, if you're doing audit, if your team is doing audit of a fixed asset acquisition, they take invoice of the fixed asset acquisition and keep it in file. It is not sufficient. They need to write on that paper what have they done with that paper, whether they checked it, whether they did not check it, whether they performed some kind of activity. On that paper only they have to write. So you need to have your work papers in place. I was the other day, one of the senior CA friend, they came to my office, and they were facing a very tough situation, because the company for which they were doing audit, that company had gone into this insolvency thing. And the judge asked, where are your work papers? So this person, who was a friend of mine, CA, he said that, I did audit very honestly and I did not compromise on any of the thing. But what should I show to the judge? What should I go to and show it to the court? Then I helped them in preparing those kind of work papers on the basis of whatever information they had on their laptops and on their computers. So please remember, it is very important for you to have your work papers in order. It doesn't matter however confident you are about the financial statement of the client. There are standards on auditing which tells you to have audit planning properly done, to communicate with the previous auditor. It's not that you pick up the phone and ask the previous auditor whether you have any objection on my accepting this audit or not. You need to have a communication. You need to have a proof of delivering that communication to the previous auditor. And you need to have no objection certificate in case, because there may be a fee pending for that auditor in the previous years. So these auditing standards need to be complied with. Even if you are doing midterm review or you're signing of the quarterly statements, you may say that I run a small firm, I do not deal with listed companies, so I do not have any such problems. But please remember, the clients with whom you are working, they may tomorrow go into a joint venture, or they may take a bank loan, and then something can go wrong. So you need to have your work papers in order. You must have your filing in place. So whether you are doing you are giving certificate for anybody who is going to apply for a visa, you need to have proper work paper for that. You are doing certificate for somebody who is putting a tender for, you are giving a certificate for their turnover certificate, you need to have a proper wording. You need to have a proper backup. You need to have a representation. All these things need to be there in your work papers. So these standards, they are very important, and all of us need to know that these standards are now become law. And of course, the institute is working on bringing auditing standard for less complex entities. Till the time that standard comes, we need to follow with all these standards. So this is a structure on standards on auditing. There are different series, 200 to 299, general principles, and 300. These are all there. If you will open the book, there's a complete published book by the Institute on Auditing Standards. And please also remember that these standards are parallel to the international standards on auditing. Our institute had taken up a project to bring up our auditing standards in line with international standards on auditing, except one or two areas where we are doing audits, like for example the joint audits. Internationally, this concept is not there, but in India this concept is there. We need to be careful about, and we need to be aware of that our standards are equivalent to the international standards, except one or two areas where we have a different approach. And specifically because we are doing we are in a unique territory. Our bank audits, our branches are audited by different people, and bank audits are done by joint auditors. So there are different ways in which we function. So friends, this is my last slide. What is the purpose when we are doing the audits? And after this slide, I will open the floor for question and answer, and maybe we can have a little bit of discussion. Whether we are ears and eyes of whom? Please be very careful when you are doing a statutory audit. You are not ears and eyes of a particular person. You are doing audit as per the statute. You are doing audit as required by the act, or whether it is a tax audit, whether it is a company's audit, whether it is a proprietorship audit, LLP, whichever audit you are doing in order to meet the requirement of the law. And that law requires you to comply with certain criteria. So auditing standard is one of the most important part. But when you are doing internal audit, then you are doing it for as ears and eyes of the management. But if you are doing forensic audit, then the investor who has appointed you to do the forensic audit, you are ears and eyes of that investor. So while we are doing a lot of forensic audit assignments, these very, very confidentially, they want to know what is happening in my company. So a foreign subsidiary working in India, the head office wants to know that, there is some kind of, I am anticipating something is going wrong in this company. Can you go do the audit and let me know whether it is right or not? So they will not send you as forensic auditor. They will say that, okay, you go and just do a tax advisory for us, sit in the company, and then you become ears and eyes of us. So different audits will have different approaches. So whether you are working as a policeman, when you are doing statutory audit, you are certainly not working as a policeman. You are not supposed to work as a policeman, that you will need to find a fraud in any case. So you are working as per requirement, as per the standards on auditing. You are supposed to do pick up some samples and form an opinion. You're going to give an opinion. When I was taking a session, I had opportunity to train the people who are working with SFIO. So I had to spend a lot of time to make them understand that, when a CA is signing a audit report, that person is giving his opinion or her opinion. That person is not giving a certificate that everything is fine in these financial statements. So it's not a policeman kind of a job. So those people are working as auditor only, and they are giving an opinion only. So whether watchdog or not, nowadays a lot of debate is happening around it. So earlier our books, when we were studying, auditing was said to be like a watchdog. You will sit outside and you will make a noise if you see something wrong happening. But I think the regulators and the society, their anticipation, their expectation has changed. So they want auditor to find out in case anything is going wrong. Whether you are consultant while doing auditing, when you are a statutory auditor, strict no, you are not a consultant. But yes, when you are doing internal audit or when you are doing a special purpose audit, then you are also consulting the management on what are the areas in which, how you can improve your internal control system. Catalyst, whether you are a catalyst when you are doing audit or not, I don't think statutory auditor will get into any of the management services. But internal auditor, of course, internal auditor can do forensic audit, internal auditor can do advisory, can do catalyst, because that is part of the management only. So what we have seen in the whole presentation, we started from the corporate frauds. We looked into 8 stories around the world. We realized that the brightest of the names, they came under scanner, and the scandal came out, and the auditors and all those people were, asked questions. Then we saw that, okay, accounting standards, there is a lot of subjectivity in India. There is a multi-regulator model, and all those regulators want you to make financial statements in particular manner. So we looked into what kind of standards are there, and all these standards are applicable, and you need to be careful which company or which entity or which client of yours is required to follow with which standards. And then we moved on to look into how the revenue recognition, we looked into only 1 or 2 areas, but we saw that the subjectivity is there in the standards. So you need to apply your professional judgment, and you need to prove through your documentation that you were not negligent of this. And then we saw the auditing standards and how, as an auditor, what kind of standards are there, how while doing the audit you need to be careful about. So I hope this small discussion was useful for you. I will now open the floor for question and answer. So in case you have any question, you can put that in a chat box, or in case any of the panelists wants to discuss. So I have a lot of questions in the question and answer. So if you allow, Arunji, can I go through those and discuss those? Sir, you're on mute.
Hello.
Yes, Arunji.
Sir, you can take some question.
Okay, so Sushil Dalmia ji has asked, please dwell upon the confirmation issue, keeping Satyam in mind, how to deal with it in SME audit, who are not interested to obtain the confirmations, how the auditor can deal with it. Only way out is subsequent transactions. Sushil ji, this issue is very important of taking confirmation. Generally, when we do small audits, we generally ask the management to bring in, the bank confirmation letters. And so please get your comfort and have a documentation of getting a direct confirmation from bank. Nobody will mind if you as an auditor would like to have an independent third party confirmation. Though you can ask the client to write a mail to the bank manager who will with a copy to you, and that bank manager will respond to that mail. That's one way. The other way is there are now online applications which are available in the market. For example, confirmation.com. So those confirmations can be sent through that application to the bank, and then bank will respond to saying yes or no. But yes, if I be honest with you, if your client has taken some entries, so finding a confirmation will be really tough. So you need to see what exposure you want to have with that kind of signing of that kind of financial statements. So subsequent transactions is certainly a way out on how you get a comfort, but then you need to prepare a document which will say that, okay, on this date, the balance was this much, subsequent date, this was recovered and the new invoices were, so I'm comfortable with the balance. But these are called alternate procedures. But anyway, you cannot leave main procedures and alternate procedures both on the side and then carry on with the signing off. So it is very important. Yes, you can get your comfort. If main one is not possible, then you get an alternate procedure done. So Mr. Anil Goyal has asked what comment should be made for stock verification as at 31st March, as no physical verification was possible in view of lockdown. So Anilji, if you have seen Mr. Sushil Dalmia's comment, there are always a possibility of looking into subsequent transaction. If you are comfortable by getting a comfort, if you are able to get a comfort on their stock in terms of quantity as well as in terms of quality, value, by looking into the sales and purchase transactions which happened, after 31st March, you can get that comfort. If many of the people, what they did when the lockdown opened, they went and did inventory check at that point of time. If you have not yet done the sign of the balance sheet, you can do now and then see whatever movement has happened in between, and you get a comfort from there. But if you have no comfort on the inventory, you can't even go and see the inventory, then you put a qualification that you are not comfortable with the inventory valuation. Ankush Bansal has asked a question. Thank you for sharing your experience. My question is, do you think there is a need of separate disclosure about the secured IT infrastructure in our audit report, as the number of IT-enabled startups are rising day by day, to ensure whether the customer data is safe? And so, Ankush, this is very important when you deal with startups and the companies which are dealing in online businesses. You need to be very sure about their control mechanism. So IFCFR is one of the key area in which you need to be careful about, and you need to carry out your procedures. So basically, if the company is very large and very complex, I would recommend that take help of IT experts and get your comfort on the IT controls. It is very, very important part. So Sushil Dalmia ji has also put in another comment. Previous year figures are generally not mentioned in financial statements other than the companies, and the clients generally do not agree for it, including the trust. Please suggest the way out. So I think this is a matter of for you to see how you want to deal with the situation. But my recommendation is that show them the framework and show them the other trust or other entities which are showing the comparable numbers. When you will tell them that it is a risk for you as well, then probably they will be able. So there is no harm. The previous year audit was done, their audit was signed off, numbers are there. So I think it is it is okay if you take a little time, but convince the people to have previous year numbers as well, because on a scenario, on a country level also, we need to see that the financial reporting become little better as far as non-corporate entities are concerned. So Sushilji, thank you so much for your comment. Beside the presentation, the questions are explained in great detail. So thank you, Sushilji, for your nice comment. Okay, I think a lot of appreciation is coming, so I will leave it to Arunji now. Yeah, Arunji, over to you, sir.
सर कुछ और बताना चाहें तो भी है 20 मिनट हमारे पास.
So I think this is good.
वैसे बात करना चाहें आपस में जी, कोई गाइड करना चाहें वैसे जी हटके जी.
I think this part is very important to be careful about whatever we are signing off as auditor. I think the concept of professional skepticism is very, very important to understand. Whenever we are signing any balance sheet, there has to be some skepticism that maybe something is wrong there. And if we start our audits from there, I think we will be in a position to protect. And also another criteria would be that if your file is being, imagine your file is being, has gone to, let's say, a regulator, and they are asking question from you, how did you do the audit? What have you written in the file is important. So have that kind of skepticism and then do the audit. I think that will be sufficient for all of us.
सर कंफर्मेशन के लिए हम डायरेक्ट लिख सकते हैं क्या जी?
हाँ जी सर,
कंफर्मेशन के लिए हम बैंक को सब डायरेक्ट लिख सकते हैं जी?
हाँ जी, डायरेक्टली ही लिखना चाहिए हमें विद द सिग्नेचर ऑफ ऑथोराइज्ड सिग्नेटरी. वी शुड ऑलवेज सेंड इट टू द बैंक डायरेक्टली.
ओके सर.
Always remember that if somebody wants to manipulate the numbers, they would always show you an incorrect bank statement. And this was one of the major issue in Satyam. The audit team, they wanted to have bank confirmations. The management told them that, okay, you carry on your work, we'll get you the bank confirmation before you close the audit. And a night before their partner was about to sign, they were given the confirmations, bank confirmations by the management. So the team which was working, they were not aware that confirmations are getting printed in the next room. It's not difficult, right? It's creating a bank document, letterhead or something. But they were comfortable with this. And that's why, they faced all the music. Yes. Rajesh ji, any comment?
Sir, I have also done the course of this is fraud. तो इसके अंदर हमारे को कितना डेप्थ में जाके चेक करना चाहिए, ये एक मेन पॉइंट है जो हम आपसे सीखना चाहते हैं. जैसे आप कोई भी डेप्थ में चेकिंग करते हैं तो हमें कहाँ तक जाना चाहिए, उसके बारे में थोड़ा एनलाइटन कीजिए मेंबरों को सर. दिस इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट एरिया कि आज हम कोई भी फ्रॉड का या कोई भी केस पकड़ते हैं तो डरते हैं कि ले के ना लें सर. उसके बारे में थोड़ा ज्ञान दीजिए हमारे को सर.
Sir, so there are two scenarios. One is when the fraud has already happened.
Yes, sir.
And you are going to do the investigation.
Yes, sir.
That time you are collecting evidence, basically. You are going deep and you are collecting evidence which can be produced in the court of law.
Yes, sir.
But many times when you are doing you are doing audits, maybe internal audits or statutory audit, that time your objectives will matter a lot. So in statutory audit, our objective is the number which has been shown in the financial statement.
Yes, sir.
We have to give our opinion on that. So whether the management is, manipulating that number, or the accountant is not even aware that the number can be wrong. It is not easy nowadays. I give you one very small example.
Yes, sir.
Earlier days, you go and buy, these, let's say, spectacles,
Yes, sir.
and you make payment.
Yes, sir.
The firm will recognize revenue at that point of time only.
Yes, sir.
Now you go and this salesman will tell you कि सर आपने 2000 रुपए का चश्मा ले लिया, बहुत अच्छा किया, आपको एक स्कीम देते हैं 500 रुपए में एक और चश्मा ले जाइए,
जी,
ठीक है, और अगले 3 साल तक जब भी टूटेगा हम आपको रिप्लेस करके देंगे.
जी सर.
अब now see that 2000 and 5500, whether this is revenue of the current year, it is not.
Not, yeah.
So, and if an accountant takes all the 2500 rupiah into current year revenue, that means it is actually it is not that simple nowadays. इतनी स्कीमें आ जाती हैं और उसमें आपके फ्यूचर कमिटमेंट्स होते हैं, तो it's very difficult to do accounting nowadays, because अगर ये कंपनी इंड एस कर रही है तो फिर तो और भी ज्यादा कमिटमेंट, और भी ज्यादा कॉम्प्लिकेशंस है.
जी,
छोटी से छोटी चीज में भी अब स्कीमें आ गई, एक के साथ एक फ्री ले लो, या आपको 1 साल की वारंटी दे देंगे, 1 साल बाद आप चेंज कर लेना, या आप आप साड़ी लेने गए, उसने बोला जी आप एक काम करो, आप ये 3 साड़ियां ले जाओ, ठीक लगे तो आप तीनों रख लेना, नहीं लगे तो आप 2 वापस कर देना, आप 1 के पैसे दे जाओ, 3 के पैसे दे जाओ, वो बाद की बात है, आप कोई भी पैसा मत दो, आप उठा के 3 ले जाओ.
जी.
और आप 3 लेके गए और उसने आपको 1 हफ्ते का टाइम दिया, उस 1 हफ्ते के बीच में 31 मार्च आ गया,
बिल्कुल ठीक है जी.
तो वो 3 साड़ियां सेल हुई आपकी, या आपकी 1 साड़ी सेल हुई, तो it's not simple, it's become very complicated nowadays. So this is what we were discussing in the accounting standard board also,
जी,
कि हमने ऑलरेडी इतने सारे स्टैंडर्ड बना लिए हैं, तो मेन चीज ये है कि हमारे को उस नंबर पे कंफर्ट आना चाहिए जिस पे हम साइन कर रहे हैं अपना ओपिनियन देने के लिए. दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. तो जितना डीप में, मतलब मैंने देखा है कि एंड छोटी फर्मों में, आई हैव बीन कनेक्टेड विद स्मॉल फर्म्स अ लॉट, आई सी ऑलवेज पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ ओवर ऑडिट. आप लड़के को बोलते हो कि, या आप अपने आर्टिकल क्लर्क को बोलते हो कि जा बेटा ये सेल्स का, रेवेन्यू का ऑडिट कर ले,
जी,
दे विल गो एंड डू 100% ऑडिट,
जी.
सारे वोचर चेक कर लेंगे बच्चे जाके वहां, जरूरत नहीं है. आपका ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड कहता है आपने सैंपल उठाना है, अगर आपको उनका उस सैंपल पे कंट्रोल आपको ठीक लगा तो आपको सारे के सारे चेक करने की जरूरत नहीं है.
जी, जी, जी.
तो जनरली स्मॉलर एंटिटीज में ओवर ऑडिट्स का प्रॉब्लम है, बड़े उसमें अंडर ऑडिट का प्रॉब्लम है, बड़ी एंटिटीज में. तो कितना डीप तक जाना है, जहां तक आपको कंफर्ट आ जाए कि ये नंबर ठीक लग रहा है मेरे को मोटा माटी तौर पे.
नहीं सर,
बिजली का बिल आता है हर महीने, लेट्स से 20 लाख रुपए का बिजली का बिल आ रहा है,
जी,
और मार्च का बिल अभी आया नहीं है,
जी,
और उसने बुक कर लिया 2 लाख रुपया.
जी,
जब आप मंथली स्टेटमेंट बनवाओगे, यू कैन ऑलवेज पुट अ नंबर ना कि यार ये तो गड़बड़ लग रहा है मेरे को.
जी.
So small little procedures can help us a lot. Am I right, Arun ji?
सही कह रहे हैं सर, आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं.
नहीं सर, एक चीज क्या होती है कि since we are doing the audit, everybody is pressure for last date, sir.
ये
And
बहुत,
every client is coming on the last date and the last moment, sir.
yes, ये
And
दिक्कत
how you can tackle the issue with them with small time period, क्योंकि वो चाहते ही नहीं आपको समय दे.
अपना एक्सपीरियंस बता देता हूँ सर.
बताइए सर.
हमारे कुछ एक क्लाइंट हैं जो इस तरीके के थोड़े से थोड़े से बदमाश टाइप हैं कि जो लास्ट मोमेंट पे आते हैं.
लास्ट मोमेंट पे आते हैं.
हमने उनको एक ईमेल लिखा
जी.
कि सपोज हम उनसे X रुपीस चार्ज ले रहे थे.
यस सर.
तो हमने उनको ईमेल लिखा कि अगर आप जून और मई और जून में ऑडिट करवाने आएंगे
जी.
तो हम आपसे चार्ज करेंगे X माइनस दिस मच.
ओके.
और अगर आप अगस्त या सितंबर में आएंगे तो हम आपसे, अगस्त में आएंगे तो X चार्ज करेंगे, अगर सितंबर में आए
जी.
तो हम 2X चार्ज करेंगे.
ठीक है.
और हमने पहले ईमेल लिख दिया और फिर उनको फोन करके बता दिया कि आप बाद में शोर मत मचाना, हमने ये आपका इसी तरीके से चलना है.
जी
अगर आपको अगर पैसे बचाने हैं तो आप मई जून में आ जाओ।
ठीक है।
सब पे तो नहीं पड़ा, बट 3-4 क्लाइंटों पे फर्क पड़ गया।
सर ये प्रोफेशनल मिसकंडक्ट नहीं है कि हमने 3 फीसद रख दिया है?
हो गया
मई
सर?
की अलग, अगस्त की अलग, सितंबर की अलग सर।
नहीं, प्रोफेशनल मिसकंडक्ट तो बहुत बड़ी चीज हो जाती है। तो
तो
बट इट्स
आपने
फाइन, यू कैन ऑलवेज टेल द क्लाइंट्स,
जी
एजुकेट द क्लाइंट्स,
जी जी जी
और स्लोली एंड ग्रेजुअली। जैसे बहुत पहले हम जब ऑडिट करते थे तो कुछ क्लाइंट कहते थे ये तो ऑडिटर का काम है, फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट बैलेंस शीट बनाना तो ऑडिटर का काम है।
जी 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 जी
तो जब हमने डिवीजन किया कि हमारा ऑडिट एक टीम करेगी, अकाउंटिंग दूसरी टीम करेगी, और वो सेम क्लाइंट का नहीं करेंगे,
जी
देन
जी
वी टोल्ड द क्लाइंट्स कि हम आपकी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट बनाएंगे, तो हम ऑडिट नहीं कर सकते। अगर हम ऑडिट करेंगे तो आपके बैलेंस शीट नहीं बनाएंगे।
जी जी
देन वी टाइड अप विद सम फ्रेंड्स,
जी
आपके जैसे
जी जी
फ्रेंड्स हैं, उनको बुलाया कि भैया देखो, अगर क्लाइंट को बोला कि अगर आपको बैलेंस शीट बनाने में दिक्कत आ रही है तो आप राजेश जी से बनवा लो
बिल्कुल ठीक है
और
जी,
हम ऑडिट कर देंगे।
बिल्कुल ठीक है।
राजेश जी का भी फायदा हो गया, हमारा भी फायदा हो गया। हमें
अरुण जी छूट
प्रोफेशनल
गए।
तरीके से बनी हुई बैलेंस शीट मिल गई, और
जी
क्लाइंट, जहां पे क्लाइंट के अकाउंटेंट कैपेबल थे, उन्होंने खुद बना ली।
ठीक है जी।
नहीं तो फिर राजेश जी का भी फायदा, हमारा भी फायदा।
अरुण जी छूट गए।
यार अरुण जी को तो ऑडिट में से मिलेगा ना यार।
ठीक है अरुण जी, सो वी
जी
कैन क्लोज नाउ।
सर एक मिनट सर, एक मिनट
जी
सर, रमन जी आए नहीं क्या?
एक बार फोन लगा लीजिए सर आप उनको ना,
हाँ सर, एक मिनट लगाता हूँ।
लगाओ फोन लगाओ सर, वो पता नहीं उनका इंटरनेट उड़ गया होगा कहीं, देखो सर है।
देव,
हेलो।
हाँ
हाँ सर, मैं कर रहा हूँ एक बार।
सर, आपको मोमेंटो तो दे नहीं पाएंगे, लेकिन वोट ऑफ थैंक्स तो कर ही देते हैं सर आपको। 2 मिनट वेट करते हैं, 2 मिनट।
जरूरत नहीं है आप लोगों का
नहीं
इतना।
कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं।
सर रमन सर विल कम इन जस्ट 30 seconds ओनली।
सर प्लीज। वैसे आज की डेट में ना ये ईमानदारी से सर ऑडिट करना बड़ा मुश्किल हो गया है। आप लोगों को सुन लो, गोपाल जी को सुन लो, चोपड़ा जी को सुन लो, तो ऐसे करता है कि ऑडिट करने का मन ही नहीं करता जी।
आजकल का टाइम सर स्पेशलाइजेशन का है। जो लोग जीएसटी कर रहे हैं ना सर, मेरे बहुत सारे फ्रेंड्स हैं वो खाली जीएसटी कर रहे हैं अब आजकल। जो लोग इनकम टैक्स कर रहे हैं वो खाली इनकम टैक्स कर रहे हैं। तो स्पेशलाइजेशन का जमाना है सर।
ऑडिट में बड़ी दिक्कत है सर।
ठीक बात है सर।
सर चैप्टर खत्म हो गया।
रमन सर प्लीज गिव द वोट ऑफ थैंक्स टू प्रवीण सर।
राजेश जी देंगे, राजेश जी।
नहीं आप चले, आप पहले आप कोई सवाल तो करो सर के पास से, आप तो गायब हो गए थे तो वापस आए हो, थोड़ा सर का तो कुछ करो ना, फिर हम करेंगे सर।
अच्छा,
हाँ
I very thankful to sir that he has given his time and has a very the first actually the Q&A is I want to narrate that slide that is called by the Sushil Dalmia ji. That slides very nicely made out and being explained beautifully, quite in depth, shows the experience of the speaker. Just great, quite interesting, and shall be very, very useful for all of us. Many thanks. So this is not actually the Sushil Dalmiaji's word. This is the word that everyone, that is more than 250 members are there. Everyone is saying like this only. So we are very thankful to sir, and I request Rajesh sir to give a formal vote of thanks to Parveen sir.
Sir, I, on behalf of Northex CS Study Circle, thank you for your such a great deliberation. I correct Mr. Ramanji, we have member of more than 280 because he is absent for half an hour. Members are more than 280, which show great love and affection for your deliberation, sir. And again, I request you, if you find time, we will again call you on this particular topic with more details and more your knowledge sharing concepts, sir. Thank you very much for your sparing this special time, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
कल का सेमिनार का बता दो राजेश जी एक बार,
हाँ जी,
कल का सेमिनार का बता दो, कल भी सेमिनार है ना जी।
अभी मेरे पास डिटेल नहीं है सर, आप ही बोल दीजिए सर।
कल अपना 3 सेमिनार, 3 स्पीकर रहेंगे जी।
जी
पहला है ये स्लाइड पे आ गया, टैक्सेशन ऑडिट ऑफ एनजीओ
जी
एंड लेटेस्ट अमेंडमेंट पीएफ स्कीम एंड इट्स बेनिफिट।
जी
पहला
सर
सेशन लेंगे मुकेश कुमार सिंह जी, सीए मुकेश सिंह जी। दूसरा
जी
लेंगे सीए वेद मित्तल जी, एनालिसिस ऑफ आईटीआर 7 एंड ऑडिट प्रोविजन फॉर एनजीओ एंड
जी
ऑब्लिक एनपीओ। और तीसरा जो है पीएफ ईएसआई में काफी चेंज आए, हमारे मिस्टर आशीष बंसली हमारे मित्र हैं,
जी
वो थोड़ा सा एनलाइटन करना चाहेंगे आधा घंटे के लिए। तो
जी
थोड़ा सा वो ब्रीफ बताएंगे, जो हम सीए लोग थोड़ा ऑडिट करते हैं वो ऑडिट से रिलेटेड ही बताएंगे,
जी
ऑडिट करते हमसे क्या गलती हो जाती है। तो सभी जितने भी 242 मेंबर्स हैं अभी, सबों से रिक्वेस्ट है कि कल रजिस्ट्रेशन कर, जिन्होंने रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं कराया रजिस्ट्रेशन करा ले, कल प्रोग्राम को सक्सेसफुल बनाए। 5 से 8 का प्रोग्राम है जी कल का टाइम।
जी सर, जी सर,
थैंक यू जी,
थैंक यू प्रवीण कुमार जी,
थैंक यू प्रवीण जी, थैंक यू,
धन्यवाद सर,
Thank
धन्यवाद,
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
थैंक
थैंक
यू।
यू।